waiting, right? Good evening, everybody. My name is Jonathan Trop. I'm delighted to welcome you to the August 14, 2025 meeting of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force. I call the meeting to order at 7:33 p.m. I would ask you all to please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will try to simplify roll call again. So, Rick, just in time. So in addition to myself and Shala Fleming, David Rosenberg, Chris Powell, and Rick Bolton, we are joined by the Town Council Liaison, Jennifer Winchell, our clerk, Joanne Orenstein, Director of Technology, Bill Chin, and we have a guest with us today from Parks and Rec, Noreen Wilpizaski, something like that. So close. Moving on to the next agenda item. The only correspondence we have received since the last meeting is correspondence from folks in the town of Fairfield who are looking to put together a committee there similar to the one that we have here, and have asked to talk with us about what our committee is all about. And so I am hoping that we'll be able to have a introductory meeting of some kind on August 29th among their group and some 2 or 3 of us. I think Rodney, who's not able to be with us tonight, will probably be on that call. I'm planning to be on that call. And Shala, I think you had hoped to be. Are you able to join us on the 29th?
We'll try to figure out my schedule, but I do hope to be able to be there.
Okay. So that's the group. There was no other correspondence except the usual spam from that OpenGov group. At some point, I will unsubscribe us, but for now, we get that spam, and that moves us to public comment. Bill, is there anybody in the public who might like to speak?
Sure. If there are any members of the public who would like to make a comment this time, please press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or press *9 if you're on the phone.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Approval of the minutes of July 10, 2025. I believe all of us in attendance this evening were in attendance at that meeting except Chris. So I assume Chris will abstain, but I'll ask if anybody would like to make a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from our July meeting.
I'll
For
second.
a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Chris, can I assume that you have abstained? I don't.
Yes, that's right. Sorry, I'm just driving right now.
Thank you. Sorry. Joanne approved unanimously with 1 abstention. And I will move then on to our agenda item number 7. Noreen, I promised you we would be quick. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. We've actually been looking forward to talking with someone from Parks and Rec for some time, because we have high hopes for synergies. And so I welcome you to the table. I suspect that folks will have some questions for you, but rather than have us start with an interrogation, I would really welcome if you would share with us for a few minutes your perspective on the kinds of things that Parks and Rec does and how you think about programming for the community.
Absolutely. So for starters, my name is Noreen Wilpizaski. I'm the Recreation Program Manager. So I do oversee all of our programming that we do, including all of our summer camps, the basketball program, and both pools, which is probably the 3 largest things that we do have. Within that, I will say that our community is changing. We've had an expansion of our indoor badminton league, where we've seen a drop off in our more traditional programs like our yoga classes and our traditional like fitness programs. But we've absolutely had a major uptick in our badminton. There's a lot more folks using the cricket pitch over at the Madison Tashua field now. So I will say that there's definitely some changes like within our programming that we've started to notice, which is a positive thing. There's a lot of stuff happening in Trumbull right now. In addition to that, I do oversee about 200 seasonal employees or volunteers, depending on what time of year it is. So at this moment in time, with all the college kids starting to head back to school, my staff is starting to dwindle a little bit. But over the course of the last 8 weeks, I have had about 200 employees working, mostly all young adults who do reside in or around Trumbull.
Okay. Thank you for that description. That's helpful. I open it up. I always have at least a couple of questions, but rather than have me monopolize, I want to open it up to others. So, Shala, thank you. You're up.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Noreen. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to give a little bit of share. As John said, we have been eager to have conversations with someone from Park and Rec, but I wanted to just sort of lift up what particularly led me to reach out to Noreen, just so everybody here has that context. And so I would say it's like two main things. I am someone, and my children are people who partake in Park and Rec activities here in Trumbull, and so they have attended Trumbull Park and Rec camp for many years. The Playground camp. My oldest daughter went to travel camp, and they've also participated in basketball. I've been a coach for basketball. I don't know, maybe 3 years now, and so we've just enjoyed the experience, right, and all of the opportunities, specifically that Noreen oversees and is able to provide, and have just felt a sense of connection and belonging, right, and being able to engage in those programs. And so we'll say that last summer there was an incident with my son at camp, which I just want to name Noreen and the faculty. The staff at camp handled very thoughtfully. And in our follow-up conversation, one of the things that came up at the time was that I shared with Noreen that I sit on this committee. And so we just at that time talked a little bit about, how she was thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion in her role. And so the other thing that more recently led me to really want to have Noreen come and join us is that I was at Beach's Pool several weeks ago, and there was a playground communication board that was on the restroom changing facility wall. It was new to me. I'm not sure how long it's been there, but it was my first time at Beaches for the summer several weeks ago. And it was new to me in terms of my time there this summer. And I was really just touched and impressed by the addition of this communication board, as it really highlighted efforts to be inclusive, right? There's a sort of blurb on the bottom of it that talks about, how not everyone in our town may be able to use words to communicate. And so here's this board that you can use. It has, visual cues about various things related to the playground. And so it's intended to be a strategy or a tactic or a tool to be able to support those who may not be able to communicate verbally. And I now see that there's also one at Tasha Pool. And so that to me was just a very concrete example of a department, right, taking steps to really support diversity, equity, and inclusion in town. And so that was sort of the genesis of as we again came back to who are the folks we want to have come and share with us. That led me to reach out to Noreen. So thanks again for being here, Noreen.
Yep. So we collaborated with TechAC. They were actually the first ones to have one of those communication boards at the preschool. And we loved the idea. A parent kind of mentioned it to us in passing, and we loved the idea. So there's actually one at Twin Brooks playground has one mounted inside of the actual playground, and then there's the two at the pools. Some of our parks, it's a little bit tricky just having that space to be able to mount it, but we have worked with them. We do have templates and stuff to be able to do a couple of the other parks as well. It's just a matter of we can't exactly just stick a sign in the middle of a playground at every location that we have. So it's just a matter of finding the right space that works. But yeah, those have definitely been noticed. They've definitely been used. And they've definitely had a bit of conversations happening with them as well. So I'm really happy about that. Another change that we made, and again, this is something that's much bigger than me, the renovations that happened down at Twin Brooks Park. That park is now very handicap accessible, and the implementation of the benches every couple of 100 feet was done with intention. That way, that space is way more friendly for anybody with mobility issues. But it also helps the stroller crowd as well. So it's really cool to kind of see every walk of life be able to really benefit from those types of improvements.
Rick, David, Chris, to the extent that you're not focused on the road, does anybody else want to jump in? Okay, so I'll chime in a little bit, and folks can chime in as well. Actually, and for that matter, Jennifer and even Joanne, if you have, and Bill too, can be very egalitarian here. But Noreen, so thank you for the description of what you're doing. We've already started to touch on one area that I wanted to ask you about, because we had some folks from SEPTA, who connects to TechEc, come talk to us last month, and so obviously when we're talking about the utilization of outdoor space, one of the big issues is accessibility. And so I appreciate that you've already touched upon it, but I'm curious to hear a little bit about the process. Are there what kinds of approvals? Are there funds that are available to try to meet these needs? To the extent that folks who need accommodations want to participate in the summer camp, are they able to do that? What kinds of things are we thinking about in connection with that?
Yep. So I think that's so many questions to answer at once. I'm going to dissect that a little bit.
You're welcome.
So yes, there are funds that exist out in the world. For instance, the town had received a grant for the renovations that we just did up at the community garden, which is now paved walkways instead of being, it used to, honestly, it was overgrown. It was just overgrown weeds, because once the garden beds are planted, there wasn't really enough room to get a lawnmower through without being super disruptive to plantings. So it now is completely paved up there. The raised garden beds now service a whole new population up there. So there's absolutely funding for improvements to be able to be made into specific facilities. Once we realize that there's a need, then we're able to kind of make changes. Another big change that we did make was the renovation up at Tashua Knolls Pool. There was not an enclosed water play area for children who have a tendency to elope. And that's something that we've gotten a lot. And if any of you have been up to Tashua since the renovations are done, it is now a fenced in area. So the sprinkler park up there is only accessible through the main pool gates, and you have to go through a secondary gate to get into it. So it's definitely made that space a lot safer, especially for the young children who have that eloping tendency. And we've seen an uptick in those parents who have told us that we haven't come up here before, and this is great. We were told that there's a fence, and look at this. Now my child can have the same experience that other children are having. I will say we have some limitations when it comes to our camp programs, simply because of money, plain and simply. So we don't offer where in school a child might have a one-on-one aid. We don't have the ability to offer that. However, we do a pretty good job of being as inclusive as we possibly can. So this summer alone, we had children who had type 1 diabetes who needed some different attention than your standard camper would need. We get a lot of kids who do have one-on-one aids during the school year, and we do our best to kind of work with the parents to find something that works. Really and truly, as long as your child can stay with our group, and that is a very broad statement. When I say stay with our group, that means that your child can independently play on the playground, or your child can at least listen enough to the rules that they understand that like these are the boundaries and we're not going outside of this area. That's really pretty much where our like bar is. So we do get a wide variety of children with all different types of learning or social or emotional disorders and whatnot that all participate in our camp successfully. We have had a couple of children who it just hasn't turned out to be the right fit, that they might have needed something a little bit more. The other thing that we run into is that the schools that we utilize are not air conditioned. So there's a couple of children who it's just not the right environment simply because I don't know if you've ever gone into any of the school gyms on those 100-degree days, but it is much grosser in there than it is sitting underneath a tree in the shade. So sometimes it's not the right fit for different reasons, but we really do our best to try. And I will say I do take a lot of pride in the fact that my staff really does go above and beyond to try and make everyone feel welcome. So that's something that I'm very big on. I think that especially with camp, that's really and truly like where kids get to be themselves. They don't have that structure of a classroom where they're expected to sit still and be quiet. Like they're out, they're playing, they're learning their leadership skills, they're learning how to play with others. And those are really valuable life lessons. And I try and instill that in my staff. And I really do feel like, especially now, I've been here for this was my 5th summer. So I really feel like at this point, it's staff that's been working underneath me, and it really has started to make a difference with how camp as a whole is just running. So we had a very successful summer this summer. We only had one child that was asked to get picked up and not return. And out of the 2,500 campers that we had this summer, that's not a bad number. And that child did something that put themselves and the rest of the camp really in a very dangerous situation. And the parent was very understanding that that was not an acceptable behavior, and they completely understood the ramifications of the actions. But again, one camper out of 2,500 this summer did not have, I'll say, a successful run in our camp. So we really, and again, we had a few campers who absolutely need a bit more attention than other campers do, and the staff really does do a great job in trying to do that. I know I've been in touch with a lot of the SEPTA families and whatnot about trying to get an adaptive camp up and running in the future. We are still working some of the logistics of that out. My recreation background is all in community recreation. I am not a recreation therapist. I do not have any experience with recreation therapy, but we are working very hard to try and find somebody who does have that type of experience to be able to bring them on to be able to successfully launch a program of that nature.
Thank you. By the way, I had no idea 2,500. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have 4 campsites. We go from ages 4 through 12. So 4 campsites. They ran between the older kid camp only ran for 5 weeks, and the younger kid camp ran for 8 weeks. So it is quite the undertaking during the summer.
So I wanted to make the point that when we talk about DEI, and it's, so much in the news with the national focus, almost become a 4-letter word instead of 3, that part of what we're talking about is this. It's got nothing to do with pitting one group against another or advantaging anybody over anybody else. It's about trying to make sure that our neighbors are able to join us on the ball field or run around or enjoy the outdoors or whatever it is. Jennifer, I don't mean to monopolize.
Okay. That's okay. Do you have anything to do with the trails in town?
A little bit. So we kind of so I'm the recreation side. But the
Right.
park side we do work hand in hand with things. So I can hopefully answer your question.
Well, I'm wondering, the trail that goes off of Park Street down into the Pequannock Valley,
Mhm.
it goes over a it's bigger than a creek, but it's not a river. It goes over this body of water, and it just cuts off that whole area of the park for anybody who is not sure-footed, or if they're on something with wheels, they can't get down there. And it's a beautiful spot, and I would love to be able to say take my granddaughter, but I can't get her in there. Um, who should I talk to? You or who? What?
Absolutely. You could reach out to Dimitri Paris is the one who
Mhm.
oversees the parks department. You could absolutely reach out to him about that. Depending on where it is, because I believe you're talking about the rail trail, correct?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
some of that is maintained by the town, some of that is maintained by the state.
yeah.
So
It's not the part that is the old rail trail. It's on the other side of the river, where
yeah.
it's sort of little craggy little places.
Yep.
But
Yep,
there's
you
a
can absolutely reach out to Dimitri Paris about that. Or your other option is you could always reach out to the park rangers to send them out there so they can go kind of take an evaluation of it.
Mhm.
They're kind of the ones who are like the boots on the ground of the trail system.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I want to switch gears on you a little bit, and I'm mindful that uh, if one gets into the weeds and into the details, it becomes a difficult conversation that invades privacy. So I don't want to do that. I appreciate Shala sort of sharing a little bit about her family's story without asking you to share that story in any more detail or any other specific story. Uh, could you comment a little bit on, uh, I guess the question that goes back to the 1990s, how does everybody get along? And what kinds of things are you trying to do to make sure that people who are participating in the camp and the other programs feel welcome there, and that people who are not participating know that they would be welcome if they chose to participate?
Yep, absolutely. So, I'll tell you a cute little story from this summer that I think kind of speaks volumes about my hiring practices, I will say. So, we had numerous um, non binary transgender counselors this summer. And there was one in particular that comes to mind that all summer long, the kids weren't quite sure what to say, what pronouns to use. So, again, all of my counselors have name tags, but those 6 year olds don't know how to read a name tag. So finally, it was the second to last day of camp. A kiddo who had been there the entire summer just walked up to my staff member and was like, I gotta ask, are you a boy or are you a girl? And my staff member kind of laughed it off and was like, honestly, the fact that it took you 8 weeks to ask me this question speaks volumes about the culture around here. So we really do go above and beyond to make sure that everyone feels welcome. As far as the lifeguards go, I do make them very, very aware that like there are 3 options for bathing suits. So there is option number 1, which is the male bathing suit that is a traditional swim trunk. There's option 2, which is the traditional female one piece. And then there is an option 3. And if no one's selected it yet, I'm sure it will happen eventually. But we could get it's kind of like a wrestling singlet where it's a one piece that has shorts on it, but it is still a swimsuit. So we make sure that they are very well aware that there are options, and no one is forced to. Everyone gets issued a T-shirt, and this goes for both summer camp, gate monitors, and lifeguards. All of the staff are issued T-shirts. If they want a sleeveless shirt, we absolutely have them available. All that they have to do is come and grab one. But we do our best to make sure that everyone is uniformed, very like gender neutral. There is no, this is the boy, this is the girl, with the exception of the bathing suits. So, and like I said, we do have that third option. So I feel like that then does trickle down to our programming. Part of our department is the TYA program. And I love to say that the TYA program really does capture that whole group of kids who often get overlooked. So that's where you get the kids that are really into the arts. And that's where you get the kids who aren't participating in sports. That's where you get the kids that aren't going out and, participating in some of the bigger activities that happen in town. But that is still a very safe space for those kiddos. So we really do go kind of above and beyond when it comes to that. And then all of our like marketing materials and everything, we've really done our best to just be like children grades, again, playground camp is ages 6 through 10. So children ages 6 to 10. The only thing that we do have still is that basketball is still split. However, last year we did combine kindergarten and first grade is now co-ed. That's what most of the towns around us are starting to do, is that anybody under where they're keeping score, which for us is 4th grade, I believe Fairfield starts in 3rd grade, and I believe Monroe starts in 5th grade. So we're kind of splitting the difference between them. But anyone who isn't like a traditional keeping score type of program, they have gone to co-ed sports. So it's very interesting the way that that is trending. But we really do our best. And then again, I get hundreds and hundreds of applicants every year for all of our openings that we have. We do a pre-screening process where it's simply, does this person have any experience? Does this person meet our criteria? Somebody else actually goes through that. It is not me. I get handed the stack that's like, these are the people we think are potentials. And 9 times out of 10, I will contact everybody in that pile and set up interviews with everybody. And anybody that's going to be a good fit ends up getting hired. Anybody that gives off any type of, I'll say red flags, will get either I don't think this is the right fit at this time, or in some cases, I'm able to find another position. So again, I know many of you I see around town. I know many of you frequent the pools. It doesn't take much to notice that many of our gate monitors are individuals with special needs. And it's been that way for many years. As long as they can meet the requirement of what we need from them, there's no reason to exclude anybody. And in all honesty, that is the perfect job for somebody that does have some type of a high functioning disability, where they're not able to kind of do a different type of job. Like maybe they can't handle manual labor, but they can absolutely sit there and check an ID and keep count. So we do have, I would say, honestly, it's probably about 60% of the gate monitors that we have are individuals who have known disabilities that they've told us either before being hired or within their hiring paperwork. There's a few of them that actually work with job coaches who will reach out to me before the season starts just to get the expectation of like, what is it that they have to do? How long do they have to sit there? So that's also another avenue. We have a little bit of a crossover with the kiddos from Next Chapter books, simply because some of them will work with George with the cookie business. So George comes to a couple of our events. He does come to the farmers market. I think that they're actually away this week. I don't think that they were there tonight, but they are a vendor at the farmers market, and we do get a lot of those kiddos also coming to, like I said, just coming like from the vendor side point of things as well, which is also pretty cool. I hope that answers your question. I feel like I kind of went on a tangent. I apologize.
I appreciate the answer. Your staff and your campers, do they come? Well, I'll break it in two. Your staff, I think you said, comes not only from Trumbull, but also from neighboring towns. And do the campers have to be Trumbull residents, or do they also come from neighboring towns?
Yep, so it's a little bit of both. So I will say that the majority of our staff are Trumbull residents. We do get, a handful that come from Monroe or Fairfield. We have a few from Westport. But for the most part, it is Trumbull residents. Our camps open up, I believe it's 2 weeks before the camp starts, that the non-residents are able to register for the camp. However, we do make an exception, and this goes for all of our programming. Any child who comes to Trumbull as a choice school is considered a resident. So we do allow any of the kids, they tend to be from Bridgeport or Shelton. We do let any of them that are enrolled in Trumbull Public Schools, they just have to show us they get a letter from the school secretaries just stating that they are enrolled in the school. And then they're able to participate in our basketball league. They're able to participate in summer camp. That way they're still with their peers during the off season.
I have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I'll open it up again. Does anybody else? So I don't monopolize poor Noreen's time.
Sorry, can I just have
Joanne?
clarification? Kids who are enrolled in Trumbull Public Schools or any schools in Trumbull?
Trumbull Public Schools.
All right. Thanks.
So my last question goes back to the place where I started in terms of synergy. You may know that we don't have any budget here on Edit. And so when we try to think about how we can contribute to the feeling of inclusion within the town and what kinds of activities we can engage in, we frequently look to talk with others with whom we might partner. We've had a number of successful programs with the library. We've done some stuff with the Trumbull Historical Society, to name a couple of examples. Are there any activities of the Parks and Rec department that you can think of where we might be able to work together, or are there certain kinds of planning activities that we might be able to join you in thinking about?
Yeah, so I believe, and again, I don't mean to like push the buck onto somebody else. I believe you guys are involved somehow in Trumbull Day, correct?
I don't think so.
Oh, I'm surprised.
There's a private group that has participated in Trumbull Day. They're not us.
Oh, that's so surprising because I could see that being a great collaboration because that's exactly what that. And again, that's a committee that is not run through the recreation department. That is very much there's a committee that exists for that. But that right there is something that like right off the top of my head, that is absolutely something that I could see you guys being involved with. Um, I'm trying to think of like program wise, it's so hard because I hate to say like, oh, we have like a set way that we do it and it just runs. But we kind of do like basketball. I was figuring out today and we kind of have our model that's been very successful and we kind of run with it. I can absolutely think about that a little bit and get back to you with a better answer than the one that I have right now. But in my opinion, I'm shocked that you guys aren't involved with Trumbull Day because that to me is like, that's literally what that event is. That event is bringing the whole community together for one big event.
I appreciate the point, and I thank you for it. I appreciate your willingness to come back and let us know what occurs to you on further thought. It might be helpful to say explicitly that we have absolutely no desire to meddle in successful programs. That's not what this is about. And so I will close by thanking you very much for coming to share with us a little bit about what it is that you all do and to commend you on how you're doing it. And unless anybody has anything else, you're certainly most welcome to participate in the rest of our meeting, but you are also welcome to run.
Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. And I hope I was able to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Thanks, Noreen.
Thank you. So I'll move us on to agenda item 8, old business. sadly, the first item of old business is now very old business, and it's getting older. So, for various reasons having to do with how busy folks are and scheduling, at least as best I understand it, we've not been able to actually put a solid date on the calendar for this diversity training. There appears to continue to be um, interest, and we're continuing to struggle to try to actually make it happen. Obviously, the summer is now about to get away from us. With the start of the academic calendar, things get harder in some respects, maybe easier in others. And we'll keep pressing to try to get something on the calendar for the cabinet in the fall. The book club. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Before I move on, is there any comment on that before I move on? Okay. Book club. So, unfortunately, I wasn't. This is the first one I was unable to attend, but I was unable to attend the July 28th event for a work conflict. I understand that at least a couple of you were there, and so I would invite those of you who were able to attend to share a little bit about that event.
I thought it went well. It was, I don't know how many people we had. We had about maybe a dozen, I would
Yeah,
say.
give or take.
Chow, does that seem right?
Yes, I counted 12. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Lively discussion, clear everyone had read the book. Interesting that people had read the book kind of for different reasons, from different perspectives of why they came to the book. I
We
have
had
to admit that it's the first one I was able to attend, so I don't have any way to compare it to our previous experiences with it, but I thought that it was only lasted an hour. I was surprised that we only went an hour. But I thought that was an effective program.
They've all been an hour, in part because I think that it's the end of the library day. But David?
If I remember correctly, too, we had some residents who were not from Trumbull attend,
Correct.
which was kind of nice.
Yeah, I think that the program has attracted occasionally people to drive a little bit. Shala?
Yeah, I just wanted to also just say a little bit more about the range of participants, I guess, because we've had a core set of readers who have become, I would say, like regulars at our book clubs, and so those folks were there again. But as David shared, we did have I think at least two folks from another town, and other folks from Trumbull, some who have been before and others who haven't. And so Kathleen moved it to like a smaller conference room, and it was jam packed. And so
I think that had to do with the air conditioning, she said.
yeah, I can't say I know there's one I've missed, but I think this may have been our most highly attended discussion. And so it was, yeah, I thought it was a great time and a good conversation, and just glad to have the sort of diverse opinions and perspectives even within the book club space.
Great. I'm sorry I missed it. I'm glad so many of you were able to attend. I didn't finish, but I read much of the book with great interest. I intend to finish it, and I'm very glad. Our next one up is, so you want to talk about race on October 6th. And I guess we should start to get the word out on that now. I don't know if there's anything more to say about that other than that. We can ask Kathleen maybe to do a little workup. And when we reach out to Kathleen, maybe ping her again on the anti-Semitism Judaism topic, because I don't think we heard back. Am I right?
Yes, I actually spoke with her briefly after our July book club, and so she does potentially have some recommendations for us, but she just had not gotten to respond. And so I will do both things when I follow up with her, because she did say she might have some recommendations for us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any further discussion about the book club? Okay. Next up under old business is the townwide survey. I had circulated to everybody some number of days/weeks ago, a latest draft that attempted to reflect the discussion that we had last month. I do not know if I succeeded in adopting all of the comments and feedback, and so I'll invite people who have any further comments or feedback, either because I missed something or because something else has occurred to you, to raise it now. Shala.
Two quick thoughts. One, I will just say I think you generally did a great job of capturing the discussion and the updates. I just have two additional recommendations. One is that in the section where we're asking folks to kind of rate on the scale, I think it might be helpful to use a like strongly disagree to strongly agree as the sort of wording that goes with the scale, versus like true or not true, because true is more of a like, this is like fact or fiction, but we're actually sort of more asking people for their opinion and their perspective. And so the extent to which they agree or disagree with those statements, I think makes a little bit more sense to me as what we want to try to capture there. Because what's true to somebody, anyway, it just seems like
That's I'm fine with that. I think it's a helpful suggestion, but and I apologize because it probably should occur to me, but it isn't. What would you put in the middle? Or would you
neutral.
just do have strongly disagree, agree, strongly agree, and not have a middle?
Generally, when I've created surveys, I put neutral in the middle.
Neutral?
Hmm.
Rick, does your expertise lend itself to an opinion on that?
I think neutral is fine. I think
Okay.
I would need to see the question to make a
Well,
more
I can share my screen, but these are all the questions that the scale I think would be the same for all of them. I wouldn't want to vary it.
I wouldn't want to
So
change. No, you don't want it. You want just one scale.
Number one is the Trumbull community has a diverse population. I'll skip number two because it's got a lot of words. Number three, Trumbull's decision-making processes value diverse perspectives. Number four, Trumbull provides resources to support community engagement in decision-making processes.
Yeah, so
And-
I think you could use neutral or neither agree nor disagree or something like that.
Okay, I mean,
Neutral,
in
neutral's
theory,
fine.
you could leave it blank and people would figure out that it's the one in the middle, but neither agree nor disagree. It's wordy, but it works for me.
Right.
The only
Anybody have
other
an opinion on that?
sorry.
Shala, anybody else? All right, neither agree nor disagree. Okay, so what was your second comment?
My second point was just about the end where we've asked for name and email address. I think we had talked about only asking for that information in connection to follow up, but the way it's currently presented is like, if you're comfortable, leave your name and email address, and then also like maybe contact you. And so I'm not averse to that iteration, but I'm wondering if there is any other reason we would want name and email address except to follow up. And if there isn't, then I think we should put it all together in one prompt.
Fair enough. I mean, if the answer to the question, may we contact you, is no, then I have no idea what we're doing with names and email addresses either. So
Yeah, that's what I would recommend putting it. Like the question is, or maybe it's even a statement, which is like, if you are open to a follow-up conversation with a member of our committee, please provide your name and email address.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
I think that makes sense.
I think we did discuss it, and I didn't recall that one, so thank you. Anybody else have comments on the draft of the survey?
No, I think it's as we discussed last time.
Yeah, but when we discussed it last time, I wanted to have everybody have the chance to see it, live
Right.
with it, and come back. So I don't want to give short shrift to anybody who has a comment upon reflection. If nobody does, I also don't want to belabor it. I just
Yeah, I think it's good.
didn't want to short circuit it.
Good to go.
Yeah, I would just add that I think it is, I know we, like way back, we had a conversation about length. And to me, it feels like it is sufficiently going to provide us with helpful data, but also not so long that people will be scared off, by the volume of questions on it.
Okay. So I will make an attempt at incorporating the helpful feedback from this evening and circulate it one more time for people to eyeball and point out the typographical errors and whatever else. And then we can try to advance it, initiate a conversation with the town about distribution and the like. So then jumping back to our agenda. Last item of business is new business. I think last time round we had talked about having a more fulsome conversation about these meetings and about how to go about systematizing our guests to the extent that we wanted to do that. And so I wanted to open a space for that conversation, and I will open the space. Not to be too Ariana Grande about it.
Sorry, when you say systematizing, are you talking about the structure or the invite? I mean, the structure of the discussion or the invite list, or both?
I'm talking about guests, and so maybe just to rehash and level set for everybody. When the committee was first formed, among the things that we did early on was to invite discussions and invite various town officers, town administrators to our meetings for the purpose of introducing ourselves to them and for the purpose of fact finding. You know, what Dr. Semmel, what do you do? What does the education department do? How do you think about these issues? Police Chief Lombardo, what do you do? And how do you approach these issues? How do you think about these issues? How can we help you? We also initiated one-on-one conversations with various folks. And so we reached out to the majority leader at that time and the minority leader at that time. We invited the first select woman to come talk with us. We met with the head of I forget the name of the group, Health and Human Services equivalent, whatever that department is, and others. And so some of those folks came to meetings, some didn't. I think we've had since then at least one or two of them back. We've invited people to come back, but always on an ad hoc basis. And so one way to proceed is to say, we'll proceed on an ad hoc basis. If something has happened that causes us to want to talk to the police department, then let's reach out to the police department. And you will all recall that we had an event some number of months ago involving a hate group distributing some random acts of obnoxiousness around the town. And we reached out to the police, and they participated in a conversation with us. And so we could continue to pursue on an ad hoc basis conversations with folks as appropriate. I think that Shala at the last meeting or the one before that raised the question of whether we wanted to be more systematic about it. Do we want to have a regular kind of a cycle and try to have people come back to talk to us periodically. Are there some folks that we want to do that with and not others? You know, I don't know that there's a reason why we would necessarily want to talk to the fire department every year. But maybe, you know, so I think that that was the conversation that we had talked about having. And I'm not prejudging it one way or another, whether proceeding as we've been doing ad hoc is working, or trying to do something more systematic, or some third thing. And of course, we're not the only deciders, right? We could say that we would like very much for so and so to come see us once a year, and they might say thank you very much, but that's not what we're going to do. And so I just wanted to permit the conversation that I think Shala requested and we all agreed we would have. Shala?
I would just add, like maybe a third option is like it could be both and, right? It does not have to be either we have a standing calendar or we have ad hoc invitations. I think it could be both of those things. And I think that would probably be my vote, although I guess we're not there yet. And I think two reasons. One is because if we are, for example, going to have standing invitations to, for example, department heads, the first select woman person, etc. That is like each of those people sits in a space and has a perspective and is engaged in a certain aspect of the work here in town. And there are other folks for whom it might be helpful to be here. For example, if we were only doing like department heads, everybody comes once a year, then Trumbull SEPTA would not have been on the list, right? And so for me, it's both things. I do think it is important that each of the departments or whoever we decide, you know, the sort of group of standing invitees is, police department, whoever and whoever, that is a standing invite, and that there are times where we might decide there's a pastor in town who, for whatever reason, we like want to ask them to come sit and talk to us, or there is an incident that happens that necessitates that we want somebody to come and join us. For me, I think it's like the difference between being proactive and reactive. And so like the distribution of those flyers was like a reactive strategy, right? Like we reacted to what happened and invited Chief Lombardo and he graciously came. But there's also a proactive nature of the work that in sitting with town heads, first select person, whoever we decide the list to be, with two simple prompts. What have you done to advance the work of diversity, equity, inclusion in the last year? And how can this committee support you in that work? To me, seems like a reasonable yearly engagement.
So I don't think, well, I'll say it differently. I definitely did not intend to suggest that having structure precludes ad hoc. And so I certainly envision that, you know, suppose we agreed with Chief Lombardo that he's going to come talk to us every May. If something happens in June, we would certainly want to invite him back, and I hope he would come. Conversely, if something happened in April, you know, maybe we would say we don't need to see you again in May, but we would want to have him come in April if he was willing. And the same about SEPTA. The fact that we talk to Chief Lombardo by hypothesis every May should not preclude us from deciding that there are lots of other interesting people that we should talk to during the course of the year, in May or otherwise. So I fully agree with that point. The separate point is the one that is the rub, right? Are we going to also seek to have a periodicity to participation with us, and that requires some level of commitment on both sides. It requires us to think about those meetings and be prepared and participate, and it requires the folks whom we are inviting to be willing to share of their time and presumably it involves some preparation. Most people aren't going to want to show up to answer those two questions and think about them for the first time when they're here. And if we're being really candid about it, in 2025, asking somebody, what have you done to advance DEI in the last year, is a question that for some of them will be uncomfortable regardless of the answer. Either they will give an answer that suggests that they've been doing lots of things and maybe anger some folks that they don't want to anger, or call attention to themselves in ways that they don't want to, or they won't, and maybe anger some folks and call attention to themselves in ways that they don't want to. And so that doesn't mean we should shirk from what is our mission, but I think we ought to be mindful of the obstacles. And so having now said all of that, I don't know that I've contributed very much, but I'll invite others to share their views on what is to be done.
The only thing I would add is that if we were to do that on some kind of regular basis, and those were the agenda questions that we are likely to begin with, there, for better or for worse, there is some accountability in that process. If you ask someone a question in 2024, what have you done? And then a year later, they have an answer that doesn't quite meet the expectations. Now there's a record of accountability. That I could see that being a positive or a negative.
I see it as both.
Yeah.
Charlie, you were gonna.
I actually see it only as positive, because like accountability, as in you are saying you didn't do anything, but like, what are we going to slap you on the hand? Like, because the second question is, how can this group help you? And to me, that is like the core, one of the core spaces that this committee should sit in, is to be a sounding board and an idea generating group to be able to help our departments do this work better. And so, yes, it's accountability. If you came last year and you're back again and you can't really like say, what you've done or you haven't done anything, okay, how can we help you? Let's have a conversation. To me, that's only accountability in a positive direction. Nobody's going to slap you on the hand. Nobody's going to there's no consequence except how can we help you? Right. The other thing I will add, and this, I don't know, who or what the strategies or the steps would be, and whether there's even an openness to it. But to me, it is also something that is worth us trying to pursue if we do decide to go this route, is do our department heads have the option of saying no to the invitation to join this committee meeting? And if they are allowed to do that, why? And is there someone who sits at the leadership level of the town who should say or could say, yes, department heads, as part of your job here in this town, once a year, you are going to engage with the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force so that they can collaborate with you on how you're moving this work forward. And so I don't know if that's a possibility, but in terms of the will they, won't they, I think there's a potential solution there if we get support at the highest levels to be able to lean in with department or whoever it is we decide to ask them to make it part of their work to be here once a year.
I think we lost Chris, but I'm going to conclude that we still have a quorum. Rick, Rodney, either of you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm in my car driving, so excuse me, if I go in and out. I'm a little torn, about this, in terms of how to approach this, because I really want to work with leaders who really want to work with us. I don't want to be in a situation where I feel like a person doesn't want to be involved. If you don't want to be involved, then don't be involved. I mean, it saves me time, it saves the person time, and I'm not feeling like I'm pulling teeth. When the speaker that just left, and she said that she was surprised that we weren't involved in the Trumbull Day. Yeah, that's already put together. That's a committee, but just out of I don't know. I won't say respect. I would just say more of just a thought. Hey, you know what? Maybe this committee could be a part of it in some degree. I couldn't make the last meeting because I was dealing with family, but I really wanted to participate in the National Night Out when the police officers was engaging in the community at the Plasco Farm. I would have been there lockstep because that's where I think we need to be involved in things like that as a committee. And who is putting that together? And once again, that's another event that took place right here in our backyard that we weren't thought of to be a part of that. So I think that I'm striving to work with leaders or people who are just want to work with us. And I'm not interested in trying to work with people or try, hey, is this good enough? Or, so I know I'm kind of being long-winded here, but there are other ways that we can do work with leaders. And maybe we have to figure out how do we work maybe outside of the district? Maybe we do include Monroe. Maybe we include another neighboring town. That, I go to the transfer station to dump my bottles and trash. There's 3 towns up there. So, hey, maybe we figure out what's going on in that area and just start spreading, the spider web in that regard, because we've been hitting this door for a while now in terms of some of these leaders, and I just don't think a lot of them are interested.
So,
I would just, sorry, I was going to say, I think Ronnie, I appreciate what you shared. I would say though, that with that watch night as an example, I'm not sure who was behind the planning for that, but let's say it was a police department sort of initiative. If Chief Lombardo had been required to come sit with our committee once a year, there's a potential that it would have come up in him sitting with us. Or maybe not, maybe it was planned after that. But if he then can be here and be a part of our work on an annual basis, then maybe he remembers, oh, we're having this event. Let me see if Edit wants to be here, be a part of it. And so I 100% agree that no one is currently thinking about this committee. No one is thinking about being here and engaging. But I think we need to, and yes, we've been running up against the wall for all of eternity, but we have not done all that we can do as a committee to try to make it happen, is my opinion. And that is what I am suggesting that this structure might help us to be able to do.
So my reaction to what I'm hearing is to think that I'll come to you in a second, Jennifer. It is a mistake for me to be sort of doom and gloom about it without having tried. And so before we get to the question of the distinction between Shala's suggestion that maybe there's someone to appeal to cause people to come who may be reluctant, and Rodney's suggestion that he doesn't want to work with people who are reluctant, is to find out who's willing versus who's reluctant. And the only way to do that is to actually make the ask and see what the response is. And I'm certainly happy to make the asks, and then we can evaluate what the answers are and go from there before we confront the question of what to do about the no's. Jennifer?
I think it would be really easy for us to get in on that policeman thing, because all we have to do is contact them and ask to be put on the list for next year. It can't be that hard. They had several tables there for people making presentations. We could have a table. Seems to me we ought to have a table. It'd be easy for you to call them.
So a point well taken. And when we reach out to talk to Chief Lombardo, we can inquire.
I get that, but how long has this been going on though? I've been in Trumbull since 2022. This is the first I've even heard of it.
This was the first occurrence of this watch night, as far as I understand. It was the first time.
That was the first one that they've ever had. They've never had one of these before.
Okay.
It was a new event, but they are planning for next year already. Yes.
Yeah.
And the first I heard of it, Rodney, was 7 minutes ago. So,
It was wildly successful, incredibly successful.
great, good. Joanne,
Sorry, but I feel like I need to let you know I'm on the Trumbull Day Committee. I'm not their clerk. I'm actually on the committee. So, if there's something you want to do in part of the Trumbull Day, I'm sorry, it never occurred to me that to ask, but Trumbull Day is it's not exactly what was described by Noreen, though it could be, but it's a carnival, it's a music event, it's food trucks, and it's fireworks. But there are tents there. We don't charge for nonprofit organizations to sit at tents. So this year, a senior committee in favor of the senior center had a tent. So there's opportunities like that. They don't get a lot of traffic, but if you want to, ideate and come up with some big, something more exciting to do at Trumbull Day, we're open to ideas. So just had to say that.
thank you. If we have consensus to at least pursue a periodicity, then the onus is on us to reach out to people and make the asks. And that raises then the question of who should we ask? In other words, who do we want to have come talk to us if they're willing, once a year or whatever the right periodicity is? I imagine from the conversations we've had over the evening, the months, and the years that the obvious candidates include the first select person, the chief of police, the superintendent of schools, maybe somebody from Parks and Rec now if they were willing. Um, uh, who am I forgetting? The library, maybe. But who else do we have in mind? I'm trying to think of who Tom McCarthy told us sits on the cabinet. I'm not sure I know. Some of those folks are within the administration. I wouldn't single them out separate from the first select person.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But like as an example, Rena Bacalar came and talked with us, right? And so
Rena.
like she can then become an annual guest who can share updates about what's been happening like in her space. That's
Tom
just
McCarthy might be a
mhm.
person too in his own right. Okay. I mean, we don't have to have 12. We can have periodicity without filling the calendar. Uh, Anybody else that folks have in mind beyond the ones that we've named?
I do have a comment about Rena. I've been in touch with her somewhat after she came, and one of the things that she was working on is the job fair and trying to figure out how. I wanted to be involved in that. I wanted to sit on the planning committee, whatever she was doing, but it was stalled. So I mean, I don't know how people feel about that in terms of being involved in that, but I do plan on following up with her about the job fair because since she already came and spoke, and maybe I could just kind of follow with her specifically in terms of since our last meeting, what do you have on deck and what you think we can be involved in, and how is the planning for the job fair coming?
Okay. I have no difficulties if you want to touch base with her. Once we've figured out who we want to invite, we can talk about who's going to make the invitations and in what form, whether that ought to be in writing or by phone call or in some other way. But why don't we leave to the side the question of how Rena would be invited to our meetings for the moment. Shala?
I just in order for me to be able to answer this question, I had to like go to the town website and look up the directory of departments. And so there are two other departments that I see here that like I think could be helpful. One is human services, which includes the counseling center, the food pantry, the senior center, and social services. And the other potential consideration is the health department.
David?
I would just think that as we're starting to formulate this list of who we want to meet with, that maybe there are events happening annually that we want to time their meetings with us to coincide with. Like, for instance, the night out thing, which should we have had Chief Lombardo in for April or May or something, so that we're at least being somewhat strategic about what might be coming up on their agenda so that we can be involved with it potentially.
Well, we can certainly talk with folks about when on their calendar it would be helpful for them to talk to us, assuming that they're willing to talk to us on a
Understood.
regular basis.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, so I think we've come to a consensus, but I'll state it out loud and make sure that we've identified I didn't count the number, but something like 7 or 8 individuals or departments whom we would like to invite to a sort of a standing meeting to be determined. By hypothesis, one a month. In other words, I don't think we would have Dr. Semmel and Chief Lombardo both on the same day. And we'll see what they say. And then we can consider where we're at. Does that make sense to folks?
Sure.
Okay. So then let me come back to the question I tabled. I would welcome folks' opinions on how best to do this, whether, I mean, heaven forfend that we conclude the chair of the committee needs to make a bunch of phone calls. But if we wanted to have allocate responsibility among us, divided up, or whether we think that this should be done in writing by an email, in which case I don't mind if it comes from the chair of the committee. It's not so hard to take one email and send it to 7 or 8 places. Do people have opinions as to what is the better approach or the right approach for this?
I don't know if it's better, but I do think an email where everyone gets a consistent message with an invitation seems right to me. And whether, I don't know if this is the step you want to take, but like for efficiency's sake, it might even be worth, sharing well, we only, I guess, have a calendar through December at this point, but like, as we move ahead, if we have, right, like our annual dates by, is it December, January? I can't remember. And so like in the invitation, we can, this is maybe even a rationale for perhaps starting in the new year, maybe, but like, here are our dates. Like complete this doodle poll to tell us like which of, select 3 dates where you can be available or would be willing to be available to come to our committee meeting so that we can actually try to accomplish scheduling for someone who is willing in the invitation up front.
Jennifer?
I would send them an email, and then if they don't respond, give them a call.
Thoughts on whether it's one email addressed to 7 or 8 people or whether it's 7 or 8 different emails?
All you have to do is change the address. The same
7 or
email to
8
everybody.
different
with,
emails. Yeah.
Different address at the top.
I think you're
So
asking about CC versus BCC. Is that what you're?
I'm asking about whether it's
A group
Dear
email.
Chief Lombardo or whether it's Dear Important People, and it goes to 8 people at the same time. The advice I'm hearing is each of these important people will get their own, and that's fine with me,
We'll
even though they'll
personalize
all
it,
look
yeah.
the same.
I think that's right.
Okay, so then we need to draft the email that by hypothesis I will send. I might have a chance to do that. I hope I would if I were asked to have a chance to do that in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But does somebody else want to volunteer to take a stab at what that email would look like?
Sure.
That was David volunteering?
Yes, that was David
Thank you, David.
volunteering.
Thank you so much. Okay, any further discussion on that topic for this evening? Any other business to come before the committee?
Yes, just want to confirm if someone else is coming. Mary Hogue from the Sustainable Fairfield Equity Commission will be joining us September 11th.
I'll put it on the agenda. Thank you. And this time I'll try to really remember to do it so I don't put poor Joanne out again. Joanne.
So I won't be around in time to either post the agenda or do the minutes for the next meeting. I let Cindy Katsky know that. She's sort of in charge of clerks. So she said that she will make sure she takes care of that. But so I would say certainly for the agenda, you may want to reach out to Cindy and just make sure that the agenda gets posted on time. I will.
Fair enough.
I won't be able to.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate the reminder.
Over my screen.
Okay. With, I think then all of our business having been concluded, I will invite a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rick. Thank you. All in favor? Rodney, can I assume it's unanimous? There we go. All right. Everybody.